Oh, my bad. I'm sorry.
All right. So that's the reason why your Coca-Cola can says classic. If you have a day in history, I'm not.
No, it's a good one. It's actually a good one.
Okay.
10 years ago today, the first YouTube video was uploaded.
Wow.
That was
Hey.
What was the first YouTube video?
Waka Flocka for president.
Waka Flocka
yeah,
for
it's
president.
a Waka Flocka for president.
No, because he's not 35 years old.
All right. Here we go. Remember this guy?
Yes.
Who is Bert the Turtle?
The person that knew about what to do with their flowers.
Okay, so what are you supposed to do when the bomb comes?
Wherever you are.
Duck.
All right. We're going to talk about the Cuban Revolution first, then we're going to talk about Fidel Castro. All right. The first Spanish settlement in Cuba was 1511. And so Cuba slowly becomes this world supplier of sugarcane. And then from in both 1868 and in 1879, Cubans began to fight this war for independence. And so if you know your history, we got involved in the Spanish-American War. Teddy Roosevelt and his Rough Riders go down to Cuba and they free the Cubans. And after that, we have an agreement with the Cubans that we're not going to run things. We're going to let them do things the way they want to. Okay? By 1902, Cuba had finally gotten its full independence. And so then in 1933, this man, Batista, takes power after a massive labor strike motivated by government corruption. It says here, during his 26-year rule, Batista implemented some progressive social and economic reforms, and then he later threw them out the door. Government corruption was rampant under Batista. And so the reason why someone like Castro can come to power is because the guy before him wasn't much better. Alright? On July 26th of 1953, Fidel Castro led an attack on Manaca Army Barracks. The group became known as the 26th of July movement, and its goals were to overthrow Batista and carry out progressive reforms in Cuba. Castro was arrested and put in jail. He was released in 1955, and he moves to Mexico while things are kind of calming down. And then in 1956, Castro and other members of the 26th of July movement snuck back into Cuba and established a base in the mountains where Batista couldn't touch them. Starting in August of 1958, Castro's army surrounded major cities and cut off railroads and supply lines. And on December 31st, after celebrating the New Year, Batista leaves. He gets on a plane and he leaves. And when he leaves, Castro is riding on a white horse. Not actually a white horse. 2 doves descend on him. They anoint him supreme ruler.
Probably 2
Whatever.
Raven represent bad.
Yeah.
That's kind of an illusion.
Today's John Lawrence's birthday.
One foot duck lying on him, and then he put cover.
Tell us started out nice.
No way.
Tell them though.
Mr. Parker.
Mr. Parker, Nick.
Freedom of choice is what you got. Freedom of choice. Freedom of choice.
Okay,
Freedom
tell
of
them.
choice.
Havana is rampant. A young Fidel Castro is running for Congress under a clean government party banner. But just before Election Day, the self-appointed chief of the military, Fulgencio Batista, snuffs out the elections, pushes out the Cuban president Carlos Prio Socorros in a bloodless coup, and takes control of the island republic. July 26, 1953, Castro makes a reckless, radical move. He leads a group of about 150 men to storm one of the biggest military garrisons in Cuba, the Moncada Barracks at Santiago de Cuba on the eastern side of the island. The goal is to seize arms to build a military revolution. The result is a bloodbath.
They failed miserably. Many of them died. Those that weren't killed were sent to jail, including Fidel.
Batista plans to have Castro killed after his release, so Castro runs to Mexico. November 26, 1956, Castro returns from Mexico on a leaky old boat called the Grandma with a few dozen men. They're ambushed by the Cuban army on December 2nd, and most of them are killed outright. Castro survives, and with fewer than 24 others, he escapes to the Sierra Maestra Mountains. Here they hide for nearly 2 years, building a revolutionary army and developing their political philosophy and strategy. Throughout Cuba, people are growing more and more repulsed by the brutality of the Batista regime. He has jailed and killed thousands as he tries in vain to keep his grasp on power. The tighter he squeezes, the more his power slips away. After fighting a guerrilla war for the better part of a decade, Fidel Castro's opportunity has arrived. New Year's Eve, 1958. While unsuspecting revelers in Cuban casinos are playing cards, placing bets, dancing and toasting in the new year. On the streets and in the Cuban countryside, revolution is bubbling over. President Fulgencio Batista celebrates at midnight, but the clock has run out for him.
He gathers together on New Year's Eve after an appropriately festive party. His buddies, political, military, and other social leaders, fills about 6 airplanes and leaves the country.
The nation celebrates. People dance in the streets, filled with hope for a new beginning, a new Cuba. Castro takes several days to roll into Havana. He drives across the country, rallying seas of people to his side. By the time he gets to Havana, 1 million people are on the streets to celebrate a victory they see as their own. And they come to hear Fidel speak.
A bunch of white doves land on his shoulder and arm as he's making a speech. Now, for anyone who knows anything about Cuban religion, Santeria, the white dove is a very significant animal. And this immediately is the signal. Fidel is the deliverer. He is the man who is going to take Cuba from its helpless status and make it into a strong people, a strong nation.
Okay.
What if a duck would have landed on his shoulder and he would have covered?
Got it.
So many documents, like.
Yes. All right, we're about to do this together.
The scuba.
Upside down.
What was my question? All right, you have in front of you 2 documents. And today we're going to try to answer the question of how did Fidel Castro view the United States? It wasn't until after he took over that he actually declared that this was a socialist or communist takeover. Okay? And so at first, the United States tries to buddy up with Castro. They try to work with the guy. But then it becomes apparent that it's not going to work. One thing leads to another. They eventually shoot down one of our planes. We get a little bit angry. We decide to put a trade embargo with Cuba that lasts all the way up till today. Where today, what's going on with Cuba? Anybody know?
If we just get it, if we just get to go back to Cuba like a month ago or something.
Yes, so President Obama is trying to reopen relations with Cuba.
When did Castro die?
He's still alive.
He's still alive.
Conan went to Cuba.
Yeah.
Yeah, Conan went to Cuba. But Congress has not
What if they
Congress
did this
has
thing
not
like the interview?
gotten rid of the
What is-
restrictions yet.
Like, did you see that?
The interview
where they tried to kill
Kim
Kim
Jong.
Jong-un, and they tried to kill Fidel Castro?
Dude,
I love-
the
I love
They're
interview.
just peanut butter and jealous.
All right.
That's like the worst.
Will somebody volunteer to read?
Me?
Okay, Dad.
They dropped
An illiterate kid that volunteers for these.
Are we doing?
Document A. Read the first question and the first answer.
Are the electoral laws going to be changed? Of course, we will try to improve the system so that democracy will be here in politics. People used to buy votes, spend money, using power to win the election. We want to improve our electoral system.
All right, who's talking?
Fidel.
Who's he talking to?
A newspaper
American editor.
newspaper editor state.
Okay, so if he's talking to an American newspaper, this goes into your first box, by the way. If he's talking to an American newspaper, who's his audience? Who's he gearing towards?
Americans.
America.
Alright, so if he's trying to win over an American audience, would he go out there and say, I'm planning on establishing a Soviet-style state, maybe like a stone's throw away from Miami?
No,
Why not?
because it's part of the US, or, that would be too close to the US. And the
They
US
bombed the
doesn't
smithereens.
Why wouldn't you say that to an American audience?
Because
you want them to
because they're a
be-
weak nation, we're a strong nation. They're really close to us, and we don't like those people.
They're cool then.
Because
Really
they
bad.
They just want to delay it.
Like Donald Trump.
Okay, do y'all think that Castro wants the US to like him? So you're not gonna say something to tick them off initially, right? Alright, will somebody read the next question and answer? Okay, next.
What is your opinion of the U.S. foreign policy towards Cuba since you came? Answer. I am not an American citizen. I have no right to speak about the political situation. But if you ask me about Cuba, I think now it is not a bad policy. This time I think the U.S. government sent a good ambassador. Everybody says he is a good ambassador, and I feel the attitude is not against us politically. Really, the official policies, as I think now and observe, is of friendship.
Alright, Castro is a lawyer. He's very good at not answering questions if he doesn't want to, but he can talk his way around it where you think he is.
didn't answer this question.
Why not? How did he not answer it?
He didn't answer the question.
I'm not an American citizen. It's like, that's for his opinion.
He did.
So he said, I can't really speak about America because I'm not an American citizen.
I can talk about Cuba.
Yeah.
And he said he doesn't wanna speak about the political situation, which is what the whole foreign policy is.
How's the question phrased though? Alright, Brad, because you said he didn't answer the question. Were they asking him, what is it like in Cuba, or how did they let him like weasel his way out of it?
Yeah, they said, how like the U.S. foreign affairs, like, how do you think that is on Cuba, or like, how is it affecting Cuba for you?
But they asked what his opinion was.
Okay.
You know, this year or something?
It's like if someone asks you about bologna, but you don't eat bologna. You're like, they're like, how's bologna? I don't eat